Alright, I think the audio is coming through now. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, I hope we're good. Wow. So, if you guys were wondering why I actually started streaming, it's because I actually started streaming on something called Watch Me Work. So it's this thing. And I guess they just changed their format where you can, well, before it was you would be able to kind of do art or create things and join a room with one other person, and it's called Watch Me Work because you can watch the other person work and converse with them if you want to, or just do your own thing and kind of not really pay attention to what they're doing. I guess they just upgraded it, so now you can have more than 2 people in the same room. So now I'm watching 3 other people. This other guy down. Yeah, this is pretty interesting, actually. Anyways, check it out. It's actually pretty cool. So yeah, but back to the stream and YouTube. All right. Today's probably just going to be a short stream anyway. My daughter caught a cold again, so I might have to just drop everything, turn off the stream, and go upstairs and if she wakes up. So apologies ahead of time for that. That's what happens. But let's see. If you're tuning in and you had a question about Houdini, or you wanted me to go over something, feel free to write it in the chat. I will try to keep my eye on the chat window to see if there's anything you'd like me to cover. Again, let's see. You can find all the stuff that I've been doing the past year, or in 2017 anyway, on Instagram at GRantRants. And if you ever see anything in here that you find interesting, or you kind of want me to cover or look take apart, you can just hit me up and let me know, and we can go over it. But like I said, today's stream might be a little short because my little one is sick and sleeping upstairs. So I was just going to tackle something really quick. Hopefully it's really quick. A little while back, someone approached me to see how I would approach lightning, stylized lightning. Anyway, so that's what I'm just going to attempt to do, something really quickly with that today. So I'm going to just put down a hello. Okay, wait. Take that. Put it there. Put a geometry stop there. I'm in geometry node. Delete this out. And how I'm going to start this off. Oh, quantum negative is here. Okay, so how would I approach that? So first I'm going to lay down a sphere. And let me put this in context too. It was actually to see, I don't even know if I could find the clip, but it was actually in reference to, I think it was a clip from one of the Harry Potter movies where they were having like a magic wand fight, and lightning was coming out of one wand, out of each wand, and they were meeting in the middle. And so that was kind of what I was approached with how I would figure that out. And it didn't have to be really I don't know, precise or I just was gonna make it a little stylized. So how would I would approach that? So I'm gonna put down a sphere here, and I'm actually going to move it to the side a little bit. Transform. Push that off to the side just a bit. Oops, not like that. About this far back to the side. And what I'm going to do is actually scale it to be a little bit longer this way as well. And on top of that, I'm going to transform it again. Now I'm going to move it sort of in the opposite direction, this way. Okay, so if I template this one, you're going to see that we kind of have two. Just for the fact that I want to make a volume where I'm going to have all my lightning live. Okay, so now I'm going to actually just merge these two together. Okay. And so within there, I'm going to lay down a bunch of points. And so you could do that a bunch of different ways. I think I've done that before with by using something like VDB from polygons, which I love using, but you can use VDB from polygons. You do that. You can always do that. Turn this into a fog volume, and on top of that you can just put a scatter, which is a great way to put a bunch of points in random places within that volume. But I want a little bit more of a controlled amount of points in there. So instead of using VDB from polygons, instead of using VDB from polygons, what I'm going to use is points from volume. So instead, if you're going to see, if you toss a points from volume in there, you can see that actually all the points are very much on a aligned grid, and you could actually even make it a little bit of a different type of alignment by using tetrahedral. But we're going to keep it on the grid for now, and I'm going to probably make them just a little bit closer. So let's make it a little higher on the separation. And that might be a little bit too much. Actually, we don't even need to go that far. We can actually make it maybe 2. No, that's 0.1. Well, we can always up it later. And I'm going to, these are very aligned, very cleanly, but we're going to introduce just a little bit of variation. So if you up the jitter scale by just a bit, you can see that they kind of are now a little bit off center, or not perfectly aligned anymore. Okay, let's see. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect them all together. So I'm going to use a connect adjacent pieces. And you can use connect adjacent pieces for the points. And now it's going to turn into a giant mass, because for each point it's actually searching for 100 different points within this radius, and we don't need it that high, so we're going to bring that down a little bit so you can see kind of gets a little bit, oops, I'm not selecting things, so we get more of this kind of a look here, which is actually pretty interesting in and of itself. But what I want is not to have, I want them all to sort of at least connect to a few neighbors, so not go overboard, but get a relatively dense type of mesh here like this. Right, so 8 neighbors searching their 8 different points is probably good. And I might change this up a little bit later, but I'm gonna just up the jitter just a little bit more so we get a little bit more variation in all of these things. Okay. So now we got this giant mess here, but they're all connected. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a group. What this group is going to do is I'm going to group a bunch of points. And so basically what I'm going to be trying to do is start off my lightning at each end of this peanut looking shape and have them meet in the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a I'm going to actually create a sphere, and that's going to be in the middle there, and that's where they're going to meet. So I'm going to make it a polygon, and I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed that into this group node, and it's going to say bounding box by object. And so whatever point, let's see, why is this giving me an error? Attribute name either not used or recognized. What attribute name am I using? That's fine. So with this group node, I should be making a group, a bunch of points. For some reason I am not, or else I'm not seeing it. It's not adding it to my group, and why is that? There's going to be some kind of stupid reason why. It's not doing it on primitives, it has to do it on points. It should be doing it on points. Enable by volume is not volume, by sphere, bounding box is sphere. It should be whatever points that are in there. What if I turn this off? Take a look at these points. And they should they should be including in these points. And I want to call this group ends. But I cannot for some reason. And why is that? This is really, really kind of weird and frustrating. This group is supposed to be primitives, or no, it's supposed to be points. Return to edges. You can't do that because I'm on this mode. If I do it this way, turn on primitives. I can't do that either. Oh, okay. Still not getting this. Why are we not allowing, why are we not putting anything in our groups? Oh no, we are. We're just not visualizing it. So it's there. Why am I not being able to visualize it? Is my viewport screwed up again? Let's do this. Scene view. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Okay. So this happened again last week too, where it's not updating. It's kind of really weird. So my viewport wasn't updating, so I wasn't getting my visual confirmation that we're putting that in the groups. So that's just great. Okay. So so set this to points so that we're only putting points in the group, and we're using this sphere and feeding into the second input here and saying put the group with everything that's within the bounding regions of whatever you input into here. So anything that's within that sphere is now in that group, which I have called ends. Okay. Now we're going to do the same thing with another group. We're going to make another group doing the exact same thing. So let's make a double of that, and we're going to call these starts. Right? But the starts aren't going to be here. I'll tell you what, let me put a transform here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the lightning start from either end. So if the lightning starts from either end, you can just do it with, for these groups, you can just do it this way. Make another transform. Oops. let's just make it easier and just put a box on each end. Okay, so this one's going to be a box. This box is going to be smaller, and it's going to be off to the side here. Okay, whoops, not there. It's going to start from here. So that's where the lightning is going to start on this one. And we're going to make the same thing on the other side. So we're going to put another one, and we're going to put the same thing on the other side. So it's going to say +2. So these guys are going to be the starts. So we have another group called starts here, and it's going to be using these 2 points. So we've just put both boxes into a merge, and so now everything within these 2 boxes are going to be classified as the starts group. Okay? And so if we use a find shortest path node, what we can do with that is input a group which is our starts and input a group which is our ends. Okay, and now what it's doing is it's finding the shortest path possible between the starts, which are here, and the ends, which were in here, those endpoints. And so with this option, if you change this up, electric oven, hey, what's up, man? Right now we are from each start to any end. If we change this to from any start to each end, we get this type of look here. If we go from each start to each end, hopefully this doesn't lag my system here, but we get something like this. Okay, now basically what it's doing is it's going from each of those start points to each of those endpoints in there. So if we move that jitter a bit when we first created those point from volumes, so if we didn't have that jitter, we would get a very geometric pattern like this. But I said we're trying to sort of make a slight lightning type of look. So if we up the jitter scale, we can sort of start getting a little bit more of a organic type of look here. Okay, bear with me now. We're going to be improving on that a little bit. But now, what we can also do on top of that is find shortest paths also has a way to avoid certain points, if I recall correctly. And it should be service constraints, edges to avoid. So if we turn that on, but we haven't fed it any edges to avoid. So if we now put a B2B from polygons on our original peanut, like I said we were going to try to do here, but instead we use points from volume. If we did the same thing that we said we were going to do earlier and make this a fog volume instead, and scatter some points in there, scatter some random points in there, not 1,000 points, but maybe, I don't know, let's just say 50 points or so. Okay, so now in our original volume we have 50 points scattered in here, right? And I'm going to copy the points. Oops, copy the points. Some boxes. You can see that we have these boxes in here, and we can actually bring those boxes down just a little bit here. Okay? So now, if we make another group do the same thing that we were trying to do earlier and calls this group avoid. Okay? And say keep bounding regions within bounding box. We're going to bound it to the object like I did before, but yeah, that has to be, it can't be edges, it's got to be points. We have all these points now. But if I recall correctly, I think those edges to avoid needs to be placed electric oven. This is rocket science for me. Yeah, Houdini can be kind of difficult a little bit, especially this might be confusing because I hadn't really show exactly what we're trying to go for today, and I'm kind of flying off the cuff. So sorry if it doesn't seem like there's a actual target to hit. I'm trying to make some stylized electric looking things. Okay, so edges to avoid needs edges. So this group is it points. If we do a group promote, so we're going to change it from, because it's a point group, and it needs to be a point group because that's the only way we can use this bounding objects. But if we group promote and say we're going to convert it from a points group to, I think, an edges group, we can do that. And then so we're going to take avoid, and we're going to, the new name is, well, I think it'll just be called avoid. If we go to the edges, where are these things called? Edges. I'm not sure. If it turns up in here as an option that we can pick, then we did our work correctly. Right, so we can avoid avoids. So now it's kind of avoiding that. We've kind of made it avoid too much, so let's bring down those boxes that we made earlier. Right, so they're not as big. Okay. And so you can see what they're doing is they're actually trying to avoid, and because we're using a scatter to randomly place points, if we change the global seed of where those points are, which means we'll change the position of where these boxes are, it will change the avoid edges. So if while we're doing that we change this scatter, it's a global seed, every once in a while we'll change the lightning. Okay, and in order to change the global seed at a constant rate, like every few frames or so, there's actually some code that we can write in here, some expressions that we can write in here to make it change. So I'm gonna just take a look at my cheat sheets because I totally forgot what that is. And it would be something like $f minus 1 divided by 60, I believe. So in global seed, if you write $f divided by, let's try 15. Okay, what that's going to do is no, that's totally wrong. $f minus 1 divided by, or modulo 60. Now that's changing every frame, isn't it? Dang, I totally forgot that this code is supposed to be. Oh no, that's to repeat a seed. If I was to repeat a seed every 60 frames, right? So if I wanted to make a seed jump, how would I do that? Dang, I totally forgot how to do that. Okay, we will get back to that. And my daughter's coughing. Ah, God. Okay. So as it is right now, every frame it's changing. So if I just get rid of that for now. We'll get back into that. View channels. And just change this global seed. Every once in a while. If you hold Shift and hit any parameter that you've animated, you get this animation curve, and I can actually just change these keyframes that I've made. Instead of making them Bezier, I can just make them constant. So now they will just pop down, which is what I kind of wanted to do. So just stay constant, but then pop every time it hits a new one. So now the lightning kind of looks like it's moving over. You know, it's moving a little bit over time. That. Trust me, that's not all it's going to be doing, but that gives it a little bit of change. So the points from volume. Right. Okay. Now, in order for it to kind of give it a little bit more of a flowy motion, we're going to also, on top of this, give it a little bit of noise. So if we then add a point VOP, dive into the point VOP and just give it a little bit of noise. So I'm going to put a turbulent noise. Turbulent noise, we're going to feed it into the position. And we're going to add it back into our position. So add the noise back into our position and feed it back out. Okay, and the noise doesn't even have to be that much, so we're just going to make it just a bit of noise. But we're going to put the frequency up a bit. Okay, so now if we dive back out, actually I want to also this offset I would like to expose that, so I'm going to middle click it and say promote parameter. So once you get this little divot that sticks out of here, by hitting middle mouse click and saying expose parameter, if you jump back out of the point VOP, you actually get that offset to control here. And so here I'm just going to say $F, which is just your frame rate or your frame number times slow it down by maybe 0.2. So now it's kind of moving with the noise now, and then those giant changes are going to pop it a little bit differently, right? Okay, and depending on how much you change that frequency, that's how much the lightning will keep changing. And so on top of that, the things we're going to do is put a carve. And what a carve node does is, if you turn that off and turn this one on, so if you turn second U on, you can actually animate your lightning on. So I can actually start it from 0 here, and maybe once I hit 72 or so, just animate it on. And what's cool about this is the sphere in the beginning that we created to say where the ends are, because I put this transform here, if we move this transform around, you can see that it's actually, so here, we move this transform around and we template this, wherever this ball goes, that's where all of the lightning bolts will converge. So even if I go up or down, you see how they're all kind of sort of trying to stick with it, you know? That is to say that it has to stay within the original peanut shape that we had created, because that's where the points are all, you know, located. But as long as it's within here, wherever it is within here, they will try to stick to it. There, the lightning will try to stick to it from our two sources at either ends. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. So what I could do is I could actually even just put a bunch of noise in here and have it move around and stuff, but I'm just going to, let's just say, translate it on the y-axis by by, let's just say sine. We're just going to do a little formula in there to get it to move about a little bit. So times 1 times 3. And should probably say times 0.1. Right, so there we go. So now it's just moving around a little bit up and down. Let's make it move a little bit faster. Times 10. Wait. Wait a minute. Times 3, and this one should be 0.1. There we go. So now it shouldn't be moving around too much. And we could feed that same type of formula into the x position if we wanted to too. So we can see that it's all reaching here. All right. So we've got these types of lightning bolts or lightning things. We can stylize it for a little bit further by changing these. Right now there are they're primitives, but we can actually just make a convert node and convert them from being polygons and turn them into NURBS curves. So we get more of this kind of smoothed out look. And if you need to turn them back into polygons for whatever you need them for, you can actually just convert them back into polygons. So by default, it takes whatever it's being fed into it and it's converting into polygons. But here I'm saying take whatever is fed into it and turn them into NURBS curves. So if you do that, you can take a look. It just resamples it back when you bring it back into one of these things. Actually, you're not really seeing much of a difference here. Oh, here we go. Yeah. So this was the original amount of points we had, and it was a straight line between each of these points because they were primitives. But we turned them into NURBS curves, so now it's using NURBS formula to actually make the curve, but then we converted it back into polygons, so now we've got a bunch of those points there. And so from here, if you want to render it out, it's a little bit more organic when you do it this way, actually. It's more like roots or veins or something. You don't need well, yeah, if you get into complex stuff with Houdini, you can use a bunch of different math formulas and things like that, but you don't really need to. In this instance, you don't really need to. I put those in there because I'm just too lazy to keyframe them, so it helps with the motion. Because basically all that's doing is just moving that sphere around that I created earlier, where the target is, where the two lightning bolt paths hit. So it's just moving this sphere around. And I could totally just keyframe them like you would traditionally keyframe animate them, but I'm just doing that to save me from having to animate them over time. But yeah, there's a lot of Houdini that actually uses math. What if we wanted to make it behave like a rope lasso that whips around objects, etc.? Wow, I never really thought about that. If I was going to make it that whips around objects, well, if you're talking about like a rope lasso that's going to like wrap around an object, whip that wraps around, and yeah, that wraps around an object, that would be more of, I would think that would be more of like a dynamic. You would actually make use like a dynamics simulation to have that work correctly. This is more like a procedural type of way of animating this together. I mean, you could also make it animate around it and just animate over time, wrapping around it. But if you wanted to make it look really organic, like it was a lasso that you actually, had it wrap around something like in the real world, then I think probably a dynamic simulation would probably work better in that instance. And that's something that's, like I said, I am not an advanced or even considered an intermediate user of Houdini by any means. So that kind of stuff would get more into dynamics, I think. We could do a more motion graphic-y type of look where it can wrap around it afterwards, or I mean, sort of animate on and look like it's wrapping, but nothing really like photorealistic or like animate to what I think you're talking about if you're talking about like an actual lasso. So if you want to render this out, you could actually turn this into geometry. Right now they're still just lines though, and they wouldn't really render out, but you can actually turn them into actual like pipes or whatever if you used a polywire. It might get a little bit heavy if you use polywire though. But if you took a polywire, hopefully this doesn't crash my system. If you take a polywire, yeah, see, so you can actually have it. Let's turn down this to 1 usually, because usually that at 100 for some reason gets really buggy and you start getting like straight polygons. Make the the radius lower to something like, I don't know, 0.01. And you can always, right now they're just basically squares, but you could up the segments and make them more round. There you go. And actually, if you really wanted to, we're kind of getting off track here because it's not looking like a lightning bolt anymore. So actually, maybe the having the avoid on shouldn't be on anymore if it's just going to be sort of, you know, veiny looking organic roots or something that are kind of just animating on. And then you can actually turn this into, like we've done before, and make them VDB from polygons and make these a little bit more organic looking and have a little bit more of a veiny look, which, you know, I love using VDB from polygons, so let's do that. VDB from polygons. There may be too many polygons. There we go. And there may be too many polygons to do this correctly. Oh, well, that's not that bad. We can do that. And then we can do a convert B2B back into polygons. So what that does is you're going to give it a little bit more of an organic look, because now they're all sort of combined together. Whenever they overlap, they sort of combine together and make this sort of weird network here. And we can even make it a little bit more refined if we go a little bit smaller with our voxel size. And this would probably be, you know, a little more refined. Yeah, there we go. And then in between there, if we put a reshaped, which I think we covered this last time, but it kind of makes it a little bit, squeezes it down a little bit. So this makes it fatter. If we erode it, it'll make it a little bit skinnier. So let's erode it by like 0.3 or something. Yeah, we get this more of this type of look. Anyway, my daughter keeps moving around and stuff, so I think I'm gonna have to go up in a little bit and help her get back to sleep. I don't know, this was kind of a short one, and I kind of went off topic a little bit. I wanted to make it look more like lightning, but we ended up more like with like roots or veins or something, but still interesting way to go. What I like about it is that because it makes these groups up here for our starts and ends, you can actually control where they go. And then the carve is the only thing that's actually making it animate on. So yeah. Because of VDB from Polygon Sun, it actually takes a little while for it to calculate, but all right. Yeah, I think I'm gonna call it a night. Quantum negative. I looked at some of the stuff that you were asking about last week, and I still have to go back and take a look at what was it, the volume trails. Thanks for stopping by, Electric Oven. Um, yeah, if you have any other questions or if you have something that you actually want me to try to actually recreate or something like that, I'm always open to try. I'll make an attempt, or I'll make my feeble attempt at doing it. Um, uh, but yeah, I have to brush up again on I think those volume trails in order for it to work. Just by looking at that email with the node tree and stuff, I couldn't really figure that out. And I still want to try to get back to doing that whole tissue code thing, which I just have to figure out this one step where I can make it animatable. I can recreate the look of it as a still, which you only showed me stills anyway. I don't think that it animates in Blender. It could. I could be wrong, but um, I want to make it animatable in Houdini. So there's one part that I still need to try to figure out. But if there's anything else, you always send me the craziest stuff to try to recreate. So that's actually really cool. I really like it. I think I was going to try to reach out to the guy that created those weird volume trails too, and see if I could take a look at his project files. Are you working on anything crazy these days, or are you still, you know, trying to take it easy before you go into insane study and researching things in the medical industry, in the medical field? Um, yeah, I'm gonna have to get going. My daughter is kind of coughing again, so I'm gonna have to go. But yeah, I'm looking forward to send me any emails and send me whatever other stuff to try to work on and things like that. You can reach out to me if anybody else is watching too. You can reach out to me. You can find me at grantinoue.com. You can send me an email through there. You can find me on Twitter or Vimeo or Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, or whatever. We're also You can also check me out on, or get in touch with me on like the Grayscale Gorilla Slacks, the AskGSG Slack, and the BroGraph Slack. If you're not familiar with what Slack is like a giant online discussion board, chat, crazy community type thing. And the one I'm on the most is actually I think it's brograph.slack.com. Yeah. And so you can sign up for it, and these are mostly for Cinema 4D users, but we have a few Houdini guys in there as well, and Houdini and Cinema 4D people. So yeah, come check it out if you want, and if you have any questions or you just want to chat about stuff. But yeah, I think I'm gonna call it a night. Thanks for tuning in, and yeah, thanks. She just got over the pink eye and then got sick. So yeah, I have a very I create very fragile offspring apparently. But thanks for tuning in, and I guess I'll catch you guys next time.